A billionaire watches his empire crumble in the face of an uncontrollable cyber attack. But just when everything seems lost, an 8-year-old girl walks into the room with a pink laptop. What she does next forever changes the fate of everyone present. If you found this story interesting, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and let us know what city you're watching from. Let's get into it. I promise this will be the best story you'll ever hear in your life. The sun had not yet fully risen over New York City when Gabriel Hayes arrived at his office on the 32nd floor of the commercial tower on Park Avenue. At 35, he was considered one of the most promising entrepreneurs in the country, having built Innovatech from the ground up. A digital solutions company worth nearly $1 billion, his brown eyes, usually sharp and determined, today held a worry he tried to hide behind his confident posture. There was something strange in the air. Over the past few days, minor irregularities in the company's systems had caught his attention. Nothing significant to someone who didn't know every detail of the business, but Gabriel knew his company like the back of his hand. Every line of code, every process, every security protocol had passed through his personal approval. Walking through the still empty corridors, Gabriel thought about the journey that had brought him here. The son of a simple family from rural Ohio, he had arrived in the bustling metropolis with just one suitcase and many dreams. He worked as a programmer in several small companies, saved every penny, and at 28, decided to start his own business. It was 7 years of total dedication, sleeping in the office, living on sandwiches and coffee, but always believing that one day it would all be worth it. And it was. Innovatech grew exponentially, providing technological solutions to large corporations, banks, and even government agencies. Gabriel was especially proud of the digital security system his team had developed, considered one of the most advanced in North America. It was this system that protected the data of millions of Americans. Upon entering his office, Gabriel was greeted by Marina Cole, his assistant and right-hand woman for 5 years. Marina, an intelligent and efficient 40-year-old woman, had a worried look that immediately caught his attention. "Good morning, Gabriel. We need to talk, urgently," Marina said, her voice laced with an unusual tension. "What happened?" Gabriel asked, a knot forming in his stomach. "During the night, our system started behaving strangely. At first, we thought it was scheduled maintenance that wasn't on the calendar, but Robert and the tech team discovered something much more serious. Robert Foster was the head of the company's digital security department, an expert nationally recognized for his competence. If he was worried, there was more than enough reason for alarm." Gabriel followed Marina to the tech room, where he found Robert and his team of 10 specialists working frantically at their computers. The screens displayed complex code, activity graphs, and incessantly flashing red alerts. "Gabriel, good you're here," Robert said without taking his eyes off the screen. "We're facing something I've never seen before. Someone has managed to penetrate our security systems, and they're doing it in an extremely sophisticated way." "What do you mean?" "Our system was designed to be impenetrable," Gabriel replied, feeling his world crumble around him. "That's exactly why I'm so worried. Whoever is doing this knows every line of code we've developed. It's as if they have a detailed map of our entire digital architecture," Robert explained, running his hands through his hair in desperation. For the next 2 hours, Gabriel watched helplessly as his company was systematically invaded. The hackers not only accessed confidential information, but also began transferring the company's financial resources to offshore accounts. It was a coordinated, precise, and devastating attack. "We've already lost $100 million, reported Christina Oliver, the company's chief financial officer, her voice trembling. "If we can't stop this, we'll be bankrupt in a matter of hours." Gabriel felt as though he were in a nightmare. A lifetime's work was being destroyed before his eyes. The company he had built with so much love and dedication, which employed over 5,000 people and supported hundreds of families, was being decimated by invisible criminals. "We've tried every possible countermeasure," said Robert, "but they're always one step ahead. It's like they know exactly what we're going to do before we even do it." Meanwhile, in the basement of the same building, in a small room that served as a cleaning supply closet, Joseph Smith was finishing organizing his equipment for another day's work. At 50, Joseph had been the building's head custodian for nearly a decade, A man of few words, but with an immense heart, he knew every corner of that building and treated all the tenants with the same kindness and respect. Joseph was not just an ordinary custodian. Despite having only an elementary school education, he possessed an impressive practical intelligence and a natural curiosity about how things worked. During his years working in the building, he had learned a great deal about technology just by observing and asking questions of the technicians who frequented the site. But Joseph's great passion was not related to his work. His daughter, Sophia, just 8 years old, was the center of his universe. The girl had been born with an exceptional intelligence that surprised even the doctors. At 2, she was already reading fluently. At 5, she mastered complex mathematical operations. And now at 8, she had a knowledge of computers and technology that left specialized adults speechless. Sophia had taught herself to code using only an old smartphone Joseph had managed to buy on sale and the free internet from the building where he worked. The girl spent hours studying online tutorials, taking apart old electronic equipment she found in the trash, and creating small programs that solved everyday problems. Joseph had always known his daughter was special, but he never imagined how important that would be until that morning. Going up to clean the upper floors, Joseph noticed an unusual commotion in the Innovatech office. Normally at 9 in the morning, the atmosphere was calm with employees arriving gradually. Today, however, there was a visible agitation through the glass walls. Joseph knew Gabriel Hayes personally. The entrepreneur always greeted him politely and, on a few occasions, had talked to him about his family. Gabriel knew about Sophia and always showed genuine interest when Joseph spoke of the girl's talents. Approaching discreetly to arrange the plant pots near the company's entrance, Joseph managed to overhear fragments of the conversation happening in the tech room. "We've lost another 40 million, a panicked female voice said. "The systems are completely compromised," another voice shouted. "It's impossible to trace the source of the attack," a third person added. Joseph's heart began to race. Even with his limited knowledge of technology, he understood that something very serious was happening. Gabriel, who had always been kind to him, was going through a terrible crisis. At that moment, a crazy idea crossed Joseph's mind. What if Sophia could help? The girl always said that the security system she saw on television had obvious flaws. She often commented on how she would solve technological problems she saw in movies or on the news. Joseph knew. It was insane. How could an 8-year-old child solve a problem that specialists with degrees from famous universities couldn't? But he also knew his daughter. He knew the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about code and systems. He knew the ease with which she solved digital puzzles that left adults stumped. Taking out his phone, Joseph called home. On the other end of the line, Sophia's sweet voice answered immediately. "Hi, Dad. How's work today?" "Honey, I need to ask you a strange question. You were studying digital security systems last night, weren't you?" "I was, Dad. I found some really interesting videos about advanced encryption and protection against breaches. Why are you asking?" Joseph took a deep breath. He knew he was about to make a decision that could change their lives forever. "Sophia, do you remember Mr. Hayes, the businessman who works here in the building, the one who always asks about you?" "I remember him. You always say he's very polite and kind." "Well, honey, I think he's in very serious trouble. The kind of trouble you study in your videos. Would you like to try to help?" On the other end of the line, Sophia was silent for a few seconds. Joseph could almost hear the girl's thoughts organizing, assessing the situation with the maturity that had always characterized her. "Dad, if someone is attacking his system, it could be very complicated. But yes, I'd like to try to help. Can I bring my laptop?" "You can, honey, but only if you're sure. This is very serious, and I don't want you to feel pressured. Dad, when you have a talent, you have to use it to help people. Mom always taught me that. I'm on my way." Joseph hung up the phone with tears in his eyes. His wife, Frances, was at home going through a difficult period due to the lupus she had been diagnosed with the previous year. The disease had limited her ability to work, placing even more financial responsibility on Joseph's shoulders. But even amidst the difficulties, Frances had never stopped encouraging Sophia to use her talents for good. 30 minutes later, Sophia arrived at the building carrying her pink backpack and the laptop Joseph had managed to buy for her through great sacrifice. The girl, small for her age, had brown hair tied in 2 braids and eyes that shone with an almost adult intelligence. "Dad, where's the problem?" Sophia asked, with the naturalness of someone accustomed to solving complex puzzles. Joseph led her to the Innovatech floor, where the commotion had intensified. Through the glass walls, dozens of people could be seen working desperately, phones ringing incessantly, and Gabriel pacing back and forth with his hands on his head. "Sophia, are you sure you want to try this? These are very educated people working on this problem." Sophia looked at her father with the seriousness of an adult and replied, "Dad, sometimes the solution isn't in what you learned in school. Sometimes it's in a different way of looking at things." Joseph took a deep breath and went to the Innovatech reception. The receptionist, Anna, knew him well and was surprised to see him with a child during work hours. "Joseph, today is not a good day for visitors. We're facing a very serious crisis here at the company." "Anna, I know this is going to sound strange, but my daughter Sophia knows a lot about computers. She'd like to talk to Mr. Hayes about the problem you're facing." Anna looked at Sophia with a condescending smile. "How sweet, Joseph, but today really isn't the day for—" "Please," Sophia interrupted with her soft but determined voice. "I know I'm a child, but I understand security systems. If someone is attacking Mr. Hayes's computers, maybe I can help." There was something in the way Sophia spoke, a quiet confidence that didn't match her age, that made Anna hesitate. At that moment, Marina appeared at the reception, clearly stressed. "Anna, we need to call in more specialists. We've already lost 300 million, Marina said, not noticing Joseph and Sophia. "Ms. Cole," Joseph said timidly, "I'm sorry to bother you at a time like this, but my daughter Sophia would like to speak with Mr. Hayes. She knows a lot about computers." Marina looked at Sophia with an expression somewhere between desperation and disbelief. In any other situation, she would have politely dismissed the visit. But they had already tried everything. They had already called the best specialists in the country. They had already contacted international security firms. Nothing had worked. "Joseph, with all due respect, we are facing a very complex situation. It's not something that—" "Miss Cole," Sophia interrupted again, "he's losing money because someone found a backdoor in your systems. If I could take a look, I might be able to identify where that door is." Marina stared at the girl for a few seconds. There was something in the confidence with which Sophia spoke about technology that intrigued her. Besides, they really had nothing left to lose. "Gabriel is going to kill me for this," Marina muttered to herself. Then she looked at Sophia and said, "All right, you have 5 minutes to talk to him, but you need to understand that we are in a very serious situation." Sophia smiled and followed Marina to the tech room, carrying her pink laptop as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Joseph accompanied her, his heart pounding with a mix of pride and nervousness. When they entered the tech room, all conversation ceased. Gabriel, Robert, and the entire team looked in surprise at the little girl who had just entered their crisis environment. "Gabriel," Marina said hesitantly, "this is Sophia, Joseph's daughter. She would like to help with the problem we're facing." The silence that followed was deafening. Robert was the first to react, his voice filled with disbelief. "Marina, with all due respect, we are facing the most sophisticated cyber attack in the company's history. This is not the time for jokes." Gabriel, however, approached Sophia with a different look. He remembered the conversations he'd had with Joseph about the girl. He especially remembered one occasion when Joseph had mentioned that Sophia had fixed the building's sound system just by looking at the wires. "Sophia," Gabriel said, kneeling to be at the girl's eye level, "your father always says you're very smart with computers, but what we're facing here is very complicated." Sophia looked around the room, observing the screens full of code, the desperate faces of the specialists, and the atmosphere of chaos that dominated the environment. Then she opened her pink laptop and said with the calm of someone used to solving complex problems, "Mr. Hayes, may I take a look at what's happening? I promise I won't get in the way." Gabriel looked at Robert, who shook his head negatively. He looked at Marina, who shrugged. He looked at Joseph, whose eyes shone with a mixture of hope and anxiety. At that moment, Gabriel made a decision that would change their lives forever. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was intuition. Or maybe it was simply the belief that sometimes answers come from the most unexpected places. "All right, Sophia, you can take a look, but you have to promise you'll be very careful." Sophia smiled, connected her laptop to the company's network, and began to type. Her small fingers moved across the keyboard with a speed and precision that left everyone present speechless. In a few minutes, she had accessed the company's systems and was analyzing the security logs. "Interesting," Sophia murmured, her eyes glued to the screen. "They're using a technique I read about last night. It's a polymorphic attack with 3 layers of encryption." Robert approached the girl, his expression changing from disbelief to interest. "What do you mean, 3 layers?" "They created a code that constantly modifies itself," Sophia explained, without taking her eyes off the screen. "That's why you can't trace it. Every time you think you found the problem, it has already transformed into something else." "That's impossible," one of the technicians said. "Our systems would detect that kind of activity." Sophia finally looked up from the screen and looked at the technician with the patience of a teacher explaining something obvious to a student. "It wouldn't if they were using your own security system against you. It's like using the house key to open the door instead of breaking it down." Gabriel felt a chill run down his spine. If Sophia was right, it meant that someone with internal access to the systems was involved in the attack. It meant betrayal. It meant that Innovatech was not just being attacked from the outside, but being sabotaged from within. "Sophia," Gabriel said in a tense voice, "are you sure about what you're saying?" The girl looked back at the screen, her fingers working quickly. After a few minutes, she pointed to a sequence of code that appeared on the monitor. "Look here. This code is being executed with administrative privileges, but look at the time it was created." Sophia pointed to a specific line. 3:15 in the morning. Someone created a secret door in the system during the night and is using it to do all this. Robert moved closer and examined the screen. His expression gradually shifted from skepticism to shock and then to admiration. "My God," he whispered. "She's right. How did we not see this?" "Because you were looking for the problem on the outside," Sophia explained, "but the problem is on the inside." Gabriel felt as if the floor was collapsing beneath his feet. If there was a traitor in his company, it made the situation even more serious. But at the same time, for the first time in hours, he felt a spark of hope. Sophia had managed to identify in 15 minutes what his team of experts had failed to find in hours of work. "Sophia," Gabriel said, his voice filled with emotion, "can you help us stop this?" The girl looked at him with her bright eyes and smiled. "I can try, Mr. Hayes, but it's going to be like a very complicated game of chess. With every move we make, they will try to counter." At that moment, everyone in the room understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary. An 8-year-old girl, the daughter of a custodian, had just completely changed the course of a crisis that threatened to destroy one of the largest technology companies in the country. Gabriel looked at Joseph, who was leaning against the wall with tears of emotion in his eyes. He looked at Sophia, who awaited his response with the seriousness of an experienced professional. He looked at his team, who for the first time in hours seemed to have hope in their eyes. "Then let's play this chess game," Gabriel said, sitting down next to Sophia. "Count me as your partner." And so began the most important battle of Gabriel Hayes's life, with an unlikely 8-year-old heroine leading the fight to save everything he had built over a lifetime. The following hours were the most tense in Innovatech's history. Gabriel watched fascinated as Sophia worked on her pink laptop, her small fingers dancing across the keyboard with a dexterity that defied all logic. The girl had turned the tech room into her digital battlefield, and for the first time since the crisis began, Gabriel felt he had a real chance to save his company. "They just realized we've found the back door," Sophia announced, without taking her eyes off the screen. "Now they're going to try to cover all the evidence before we can trace them completely." Robert, who had initially doubted the girl's ability, was now completely focused on every word she said. "What should we do?" "We need to be faster than them," Sophia replied with impressive calm. "Mr. Hayes, can I use your team's computers? I'm going to need more processing power for what I'm about to do." Gabriel nodded, and within minutes, Sophia had connected her laptop to 3 different workstations. What she did next left even the most experienced experts in the company speechless. Sophia not only tracked the malicious code, but also created a kind of digital trap. "It's like putting a mirror in front of them," she explained. "They'll think they're attacking our systems, but they'll actually be attacking a fake copy I created. Meanwhile, I can track exactly where the attack is coming from." "That's brilliant," murmured Christina, the CFO, who had joined the group in the tech room. "Sophia, where did you learn to do this?" The girl smiled shyly. "On the internet. There are lots of videos that teach about digital security. I always thought it would be cool to know how to protect people from virtual bad guys." Joseph, who remained standing near the wall, felt his chest swell with pride. His daughter was not only solving a problem that would cost billions, but was doing so with the humility and simplicity that he and Francis had always tried to teach her. For the next 2 hours, Sophia worked tirelessly. She not only managed to trace the origin of the attack, but also began to recover the money that had been illegally transferred. Each recovered transaction was quietly celebrated by the team, who began to believe that perhaps all was not lost. "Sophia," Gabriel said, approaching the girl who seemed tired after hours of intense concentration, "do you want to take a break? I can have someone bring a snack or something to drink." "That would be nice, Mr. Hayes, but I need to finish this soon. They're trying to make one last very large transfer. If they succeed, it will be very difficult to recover that money." As Gabriel left to arrange for a snack for Sophia, Joseph approached his daughter. "How are you feeling, my dear?" "I'm okay, Dad. It's like solving a giant puzzle. It's hard, but it's fun too." Sophia looked at her father with her bright eyes. "Dad, Mr. Hayes is a very good person. You can tell he really cares about the people who work here." Joseph smiled. His daughter had always had an impressive ability to read people, to perceive their true intentions beyond appearances. When Gabriel returned with sandwiches and juice, he wore a worried expression. "Sophia, I need to tell you something. My team has discovered that the attack is coming from inside the company. That means someone I trusted is behind all this." Sophia stopped typing and looked at Gabriel with a maturity that didn't match her age. "Mr. Hayes, sometimes people do bad things for reasons they think are good, or sometimes they are forced to do bad things because someone is threatening something they love." Gabriel was struck by the wisdom of that observation. "Do you think whoever is doing this might be being threatened?" "I don't know, Mr. Hayes, but when I find this person, maybe we can talk to them before we do anything." Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, in the small apartment where Joseph lived with his family in Brooklyn, Francis Smith watched from the window as children played in the building's courtyard. At 38, Francis still had the beauty that had won Joseph's heart nearly 2 decades ago, but the lupus had left visible marks on her face and body. Francis was worried. Joseph had called earlier, explaining that Sophia was helping with a problem at the company where he worked, but she knew her husband well enough to sense he was hiding something. Joseph only got that nervous when the situation was truly serious. Sitting in her favorite chair, Francis leafed through a notebook where Sophia wrote down her inventions. The girl had always had a habit of drawing and describing the technological solutions she created, from small programs to ideas for large systems. Francis didn't understand much about technology, but she knew her daughter was special. The lupus had been discovered the previous year, after months of symptoms. That doctors couldn't explain. The disease had forced Francis to leave her job as a preschool teacher, a profession she loved that barely paid the bills, but brought her enormous personal fulfillment. Now, Joseph worked double shifts to support the family and pay for medical treatments that their insurance didn't fully cover. Francis had always worried that the family's financial struggles might affect Sophia's development. The girl deserved access to the best educational resources, the best computers, the best opportunities, but they simply couldn't afford to provide that for her. The phone rang, pulling Francis from her thoughts. On the other end of the line, Joseph's voice sounded strange. a mixture of nervousness and excitement. "Francis, you're not going to believe what's happening here." "Joseph, you're worrying me. Is Sophia okay?" "She's great, honey. Better than great. Francis, our daughter is saving a billion-dollar company." Francis was silent for a few seconds, processing what she had heard. "Joseph, are you serious?" "Completely serious. Mr. Hayes's company was being attacked by hackers, and Sophia figured out how to stop the attack. She's been here for hours, working with a team of experts, and everyone is amazed by her." Tears began to roll down Francis's face. They weren't tears of sadness, but of a maternal pride so intense it felt like it couldn't fit in her chest. "Joseph, are you sure she's safe? Isn't this kind of situation very dangerous?" "Francis, you should see our daughter. She's commanding the situation like a professional with 20 years of experience, and Mr. Hayes is treating her with so much respect and care. I think our lives are about to change, honey." After hanging up, Francis spent a long time looking out the window, reflecting on the extraordinary destiny that seemed to be unfolding for her family. She had always known Sophia was special, but she never imagined her daughter could have such a significant impact on the world at just 8 years old. Back at Innovatech, Sophia had managed not only to trace the origin of the attack, but also to identify exactly who was responsible. What she discovered left Gabriel deeply shaken. "Mr. Hayes," Sophia said softly, "I found who's doing this, but I think you should sit down before I tell you." Gabriel settled into a nearby chair, bracing himself for another devastating revelation. "You can tell me, Sophia." "It's Mr. Edward. Martin, your partner." The silence that followed was deafening. Edward Martin was more than Gabriel's partner at Innovatech. He was his best friend from college, the best man at his wedding, the person Gabriel trusted most in the entire world. "Sophia," Gabriel said, his voice choked with emotion. "Are you absolutely sure?" "I am, Mr. Hayes. Look here." Sophia pointed to the screen. "All the malicious commands are being sent from his personal computer using his administrator passwords. It can't be anyone else." Robert approached the screen and confirmed Sophia's analysis. "Gabriel, I'm sorry, but she's right. All the logs point to Edward." Gabriel stood up and began to pace the room, running his hands through his hair. Edward had been his partner from the very beginning. They had dreamed together, worked together, built everything together. Why would Edward do something like this? "Mr. Hayes," Sophia said gently, "do you want me to try talking to him first? Sometimes people do things they regret later." Gabriel looked at the girl with admiration. Even in the midst of such a painful betrayal, Sophia still showed compassion and wisdom. "Sophia, Edward is an adult with adult problems. It's not fair to put you in the middle of this." "But Mr. Hayes, if I don't try, how will we know why he did it? What if someone is forcing him? What if he's in serious trouble and didn't know who to ask for help?" Joseph approached the group. "Mr. Hayes, with all due respect, my daughter is right. If Mr. Martin is truly your friend, maybe it's worth trying to understand what's happening before making any drastic decisions." Gabriel thought for a few minutes. The simple wisdom of this family was touching on points that his anger and disappointment wouldn't let him see. Maybe there really was something more behind Edward's betrayal. "All right," Gabriel said finally, "but I will be present for any conversation you have with him." Sophia smiled and returned to her computer. In a few minutes, she had created a secure communication channel that would allow her to chat directly with Edward, without him knowing he had been discovered. "Done," Sophia announced. "Now I can send him a message pretending to be one of the hackers. I'll say I need to talk about the job and see how he reacts." The message was sent, and within minutes Edward replied. "What?" he wrote, surprised everyone. "Please don't hurt my daughter. I did everything you asked. The money is being transferred as we agreed. Just don't harm Isabella, for God's sake." Gabriel felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. Edward wasn't betraying the company out of greed or malice. He was being blackmailed. Someone was using his 15-year-old daughter as a bargaining chip. "My God," Gabriel whispered, "they're threatening Isabella." Sophia looked at Gabriel with her eyes full of compassion. "See, Mr. Hayes, I knew something was wrong. Mr. Martin must be desperate. Joseph approached Gabriel and placed a hand on his shoulder. Mr. Hayes, now we know what the real problem is. The question is, how are we going to solve it? Gabriel looked around the room, seeing his team of experts awaiting his instructions, seeing Joseph with his simple wisdom and solid values, seeing Sophia with her extraordinary intelligence and generous heart. For the first time in his life, Gabriel understood that some of the most important solutions didn't come from degrees or professional experience, but from kindness, courage, and family. Sophia, Gabriel said, making a decision that would change the course of everything. Can you track where they're holding Isabella? The girl smiled with determination. I can try, Mr. Hayes, but we're going to need Mr. Martin's help for that, and we're going to have to be very, very careful. Gabriel picked up his phone and dialed Edward. When his partner and best friend answered, Gabriel could hear the desperation in his voice. Gabriel, I can explain everything. I know you must be furious, but please give me a chance to explain. Edward, I know about Isabella. I know you're being blackmailed. I'm not calling to fight with you. I'm calling to help you save your daughter. The silence on the other end of the line was followed by a sob. Edward was crying. Gabriel, I didn't know what to do. They said if I told anyone, if I involved the police, they would hurt Isabella. Edward, you're not alone in this. We have a team here that can help us. In fact, we have a specialist who has already managed to track part of their operation. Come here immediately. We'll solve this together. When Edward arrived at the company 30 minutes later, he was visibly shaken. His eyes were red from crying and his hands were trembling. Gabriel hugged him with the strength of a brother, without any trace of anger or resentment. Edward, I want you to meet the people who are going to help us save Isabella, Gabriel said, leading his friend to the tech room. When Edward saw Joseph, he recognized him immediately. Joseph, I'm sorry for what's happening. I know this must be affecting your work. Joseph shook his head. Mr. Martin, the important thing now is to save your daughter. We'll sort everything else out later. And this is Sophia, Gabriel said, pointing to the girl who remained, focused on her laptop. She's the one who discovered what was happening and who will help us find Isabella. Edward looked at Sophia in surprise. But she's just a child. Sophia looked up from the screen and looked at Edward with a seriousness that contrasted with her age. Mr. Martin, I know it must be very hard to trust me, but I promise I will do everything I can to find your daughter. Edward knelt in front of Sophia, his tears falling freely. Please, help me save my little girl. She's all I have in the world. Sophia took Edward's hand in her small ones. We're going to bring her back, Mr. Martin, I promise. At that moment, everyone in the room understood that they were witnessing something much bigger than a corporate crisis. They were seeing a simple family with solid values and an extraordinary talent transform a situation of despair into a rescue mission. And Sophia, at only 8 years old, was about to lead the most important operation of her life, to save a kidnapped teenager and destroy a network of criminals that threatened everything these people loved. The battle was just beginning, but now they had something they didn't have before. Hope, unity, and a little heroine determined to use her talents to protect the people she loved. Gabriel looked around the room and realized that his company, his fortune, his professional success, none of it mattered as much as what was happening at that moment. He was learning about the true value of life through the eyes of an 8-year-old child and the wisdom of a custodian who understood that family was the most precious asset a person could have. Night had fallen on New York City, but inside Innovatech the lights remained on. Sophia had been working for nearly 12 hours straight, her small fingers flying across the keyboard as she tracked digital clues that would lead to Isabella. Gabriel had sent out for pizza and sodas, turning the tech room into a makeshift operations center. I've got something, Sophia announced, her voice showing fatigue for the first time that day. They're holding Isabella in a warehouse in the Bronx. I can see from the area's security cameras that there's suspicious movement there. Edward quickly approached the screen. Can you see if she's okay, if she's hurt? Sophia adjusted some controls and managed to access an internal camera in the warehouse. On the screen, an image of Isabella appeared, a pretty teenager with brown hair sitting in a chair. She looked scared, but showed no visible signs of injury. "She's okay, Mr. Martin," Sophia said softly. "But we need to get her out of there soon. From the codes I'm intercepting, they're planning to move her to another location tomorrow morning." Gabriel picked up his phone. "I'm calling the police." "No!" Edward shouted, grabbing Gabriel's arm. "They said if we involved the authorities, they would make Isabella disappear. I can't take that risk." Sophia looked at the two men and then at her father. "Mr. Hayes, Mr. Martin, I have an idea, but it's going to require a lot of courage from you." "Go ahead, Sophia," said Gabriel. "I can create a virus that will take down all of their communication systems, phones, internet, everything. They'll be blind for about an hour. That would give us enough time to rescue Isabella and escape before they can react." Robert, who had been watching the entire operation, fascinated by Sophia's abilities, approached the group. "Sophia, creating a virus like that is extremely dangerous. If something goes wrong, it could affect other systems in the area." Sophia looked at Robert seriously. "I know the risks, Mr. Foster, but sometimes we have to take risks to save the people we love." Joseph approached his daughter. "Sophia, isn't this too dangerous for you? What if these criminals find out you were the one who did this?" "Dad, they'll never find out. I'll make the virus self-destruct after an hour. It won't leave any trace that can be tracked back to me." Gabriel looked at Sophia with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Sophia, you're only 8 years old. It's not fair to put all this responsibility on your shoulders. Mr. Hayes, when God gives someone a talent, it's meant to be used for good. My mom always taught me that. If I can help save Isabella, then that's what I'm going to do." Edward knelt in front of Sophia again. "Sophia, if you can do this, I will owe you my daughter's life. I don't know how I can ever thank you." "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Martin. You just have to promise that you'll always take good care of Isabella and never again let anyone use her to hurt other people." While Sophia worked on creating the virus, Gabriel decided to call Frances. He felt it was important for her to know what was happening with Sophia. "Mrs. Smith, this is Gabriel Hayes from the building where Joseph works. May I speak with you for a moment?" On the other end of the line, Frances's heart raced. "What happened? Is Sophia okay?" "She's fine, Mrs. Smith. In fact, that's what I want to talk about. Your daughter is extraordinary. She saved my company, and now she's helping to save the life of a teenager who was kidnapped. But I wanted you to know that Sophia is doing all of this of her own free will because she has a generous heart and wants to help people." Frances was silent for a few seconds, processing the information. "Mr. Hayes, are you saying my daughter is involved in a kidnapping situation?" "Mrs. Smith, Sophia is safe. She's here with me, with Joseph, and with a team of experts. She's using her talents to help the police. I mean, to help resolve the situation. But I wanted you to know that after today, your lives will change completely." "What do you mean, Mr. Hayes?" Gabriel took a deep breath. "Mrs. Smith, Sophia saved $1 billion company. She did something that no expert in the country could do. This means she'll have opportunities you never imagined. Universities, companies, research institutions, everyone will want to work with her. But I wanted to talk to you and Joseph about how to ensure Sophia remains a child, continues to have a loving and structured family." Tears began to run down Frances's face. "Mr. Hayes, I always knew my daughter was special, but I was also always afraid that the world would want to use her in the wrong way. That's exactly why I'm calling, Mrs. Smith. I want to help protect Sophia. I want to ensure she has access to the best educational resources, but also that she continues to be the sweet and generous girl she is." After hanging up, Gabriel reflected on the conversation. He was beginning to understand that his responsibility to Sophia and her family went far beyond simple gratitude. He had the power to change their lives, and with that power came an enormous responsibility. Back at the rescue operation, Sophia had finished creating the virus. "Done," she announced, "but I need you to understand that when I activate this, you will have exactly 58 minutes to get to the warehouse, rescue Isabella, and get out." Gabriel, Edward, and Robert looked at each other. "Sophia, we're not police officers or special agents. How are we going to pull off a rescue? Sophia smiled. Mr. Hayes, sometimes the best strategy is the simplest one. You'll arrive there pretending to be clients. I'll send a fake message to the criminals, pretending to be one of their contacts, setting up a meeting to negotiate the blackmail payment. While they're distracted with you, Mr. Martin can find Isabella and get her out of there. What if they get suspicious? Asked Edward. They won't, because I'll take down their systems exactly when you arrive. They'll think it's a coincidence and will be more worried about re-establishing communications than investigating you. Joseph approached the group. Mr. Hayes, with all due respect, this is very dangerous. Maybe it would be better to call the police. Gabriel looked at Edward, who shook his head negatively. Joseph, I understand your concern, but Edward is right. If we involve the authorities now, it might be too late for Isabella. Sophia saved her work and looked at everyone present. Before we do this, I want to say something. I know I'm a child and you're adults, but I want you to promise that after we solve this, we will use all our talents and resources to help other children who might be going through similar problems. Gabriel was moved by Sophia's maturity and generosity. Sophia, I promise, we will create a foundation to help children in at-risk situations. And I promise I will use my company to create free tech education programs for underprivileged children, added Edward. And I promise I will always be here to offer support and guidance to any child who needs it, said Joseph. Sophia smiled and pressed the button that activated the virus. You now have 58 minutes. Be careful and bring Isabella back. As Gabriel, Edward and Robert headed to the Bronx, Sophia remained at the company, monitoring the operation through the security cameras she could access. Joseph stayed by her side, holding her small hand and offering all the emotional support he could. Dad, said Sophia, do you think Mom would be proud of me? Sophia, your mother is already the proudest person in the world to have you as a daughter, and after today she'll have even more reasons to be proud. The rescue operation went exactly as Sophia had planned. When Gabriel, Edward and Robert arrived at the warehouse, all the criminals' communication systems were down. The thugs were desperately trying to re-establish contact with their superiors when the three men introduced themselves as clients interested in negotiating. During the confusion, Edward managed to find and free Isabella, while Gabriel and Robert kept the criminals busy with a fake negotiation. Within 45 minutes, they were back in their cars with Isabella safe. When they arrived at Innovatech, Edward ran to hug his daughter, who cried with relief in her father's arms. Dad, I knew you would come for me. I never doubted it. Gabriel watched the emotional reunion between father and daughter and felt immense gratitude for Sophia. Without her, none of this would have been possible. Sophia, Gabriel said, approaching the girl who looked exhausted but satisfied, you saved Isabella's life. How can I ever thank you? You don't have to thank me, Mr. Hayes. Seeing Mr. Martin and Isabella together again is the best thank you I could ever have. It was that moment Isabella approached Sophia. Despite the age difference, there was an immediate connection between the two girls. Sophia, my dad told me you're only 8 years old, and that you were the one who saved me. I don't know how to thank you. Sophia smiled shyly. I didn't do anything special, Isabella. I just used what I know to help people I care about. Isabella knelt in front of Sophia. You are the bravest person I know. If you ever need anything, you can always count on me. While the girls talked, Gabriel called Joseph for a private conversation. Joseph, I want to talk to you about Sophia's future. She has an extraordinary talent that can open doors to incredible opportunities, but I also know that talents like hers can attract people who don't have good intentions. Joseph nodded with concern. Mr. Hayes, that's my biggest worry. I don't want my daughter to be exploited or to lose her innocence because of her talents. That's exactly why I want to help you. I want to create an educational fund for Sophia, pay for Mrs. Smith's treatments, and ensure your family has all the security and stability you deserve. But I want to do it in a way that preserves the values you've taught Sophia. Joseph looked at Gabriel with gratitude. Mr. Hayes, I've always taught Sophia that life isn't about what we get, but about what we give. If you want to help us, I only ask that it be in a way that allows Sophia to continue helping other people. That's my intention, Joseph. I want Sophia to have access to the best educational resources, but I also want her to use those resources to make the world a better place. In the days that followed, Sophia's story began to spread quietly through the American tech world. Gabriel had managed to keep her name out of the press, but within the community of digital security experts, everyone was talking about the little genius who had saved $1 billion company. Major universities began to get in touch, offering scholarships. Tech companies offered consulting contracts. Research institutes wanted to study Sophia's abilities. Gabriel and Joseph carefully filtered all these offers, choosing only those that would truly contribute to Sophia's healthy development as a person and a professional. 3 weeks after Isabella's rescue, Gabriel called the Smith family for a special meeting in his office. Francis, who now had access to the best medical treatments thanks to Gabriel's support, was present along with Joseph and Sophia. "I've called you here to talk about the future," Gabriel began. "Sophia, you saved my company, you saved Isabella, and you showed a maturity and generosity that I don't even see in adults 3 times your age. Now I want to make you a proposal." Sophia looked at her parents before answering. "What kind of proposal, Mr. Hayes?" "I want to create an institute for technology and education that bears your name, the Sophia Smith Institute. It will be a place where children with special talents can develop their skills, but also where all children will have access to quality tech education, regardless of their social background." Francis's eyes filled with tears. Joseph held his wife's hand with emotion. "But there's one condition," Gabriel continued. "I want you to be the Institute's chief technology officer. Obviously, only during hours compatible with your studies and your life as a child. You would have a team of adults to support you in everything, but the most important technological decisions would go through you." Sophia looked at her parents again. "Mum, Dad, do you think it's a good idea?" Francis knelt in front of her daughter. "My daughter, you were born to do great things. If this is a way to use your talents to help other children, then Mum fully supports it." Joseph nodded in agreement. "Sophia, I've always taught you that our talents are gifts we receive to share with the world. If you feel ready for this responsibility, Dad will always be by your side to support you." Sophia smiled and looked at Gabriel. "Mr. Hayes, I accept, but only if you promise that we will always remember that the most important thing isn't how smart someone is, but how kind that person is." Gabriel extended his hand to Sophia. "You have my word, Director Sophia." As they shook hands, everyone in the room understood that they were witnessing the birth of something much bigger than an educational institute. They were seeing the origin of a revolution in how American society dealt with exceptional talents, especially among children from humble backgrounds. But neither Gabriel nor the Smith family imagined that this would be just the first of many transformations Sophia would bring to their lives. The child prodigy was just beginning to show what she was capable of, and the world was about to discover that sometimes the greatest geniuses come packaged in the most generous hearts. The following week, the Sophia Smith Institute would open its doors to its first class of students, and Sophia, at 8 years old, would be ready to take on the responsibility of guiding a new generation of young American talents, always remembering that true intelligence lies in using our gifts to make other people's lives happier and more hopeful. 5 years had passed since that day that forever changed the lives of the Smith family and Gabriel Hayes. The Sophia Smith Institute had become a national benchmark for inclusive technology education, with campuses in New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. More than 5,000 children and teenagers from all social classes studied for free in the programs developed by the institution. Sophia, now 13, had grown up maintaining the same sweetness and generosity that had always characterized her, but her genius had evolved to levels that impressed experts from around the world. She spoke 6 languages fluently, had developed 3 revolutionary artificial intelligence systems, and was considered one of the world's leading authorities on cybersecurity, despite her age. That Monday morning, Sophia arrived at the main institute in New York, accompanied by Joseph, who had become the institution's security coordinator, and Francis, who now directed the psychological support program for students' families. Francis's lupus was under control thanks to the state-of-the-art treatments Gabriel had financed, and she had returned to teaching, this time helping gifted children cope with the pressure of their exceptional abilities. "Sophia, did you see the news this morning?" asked Marina Cole, who had become the Institute's administrative director. "I did, Marina. The attack on Europe's hospital systems is really worrying. Millions of patients are without access to their medical records." Gabriel approached the group with a serious expression. "Sophia, I just received a call from the Department of Health. The United States could be the next target. The hackers responsible for the attack in Europe have issued a statement saying they will take down the healthcare systems of every country in North America if their demands are not met." Sophia reflected for a few seconds. At 13, she had learned that with great talents came great responsibilities, but also great ethical dilemmas. "Gabriel, what exactly are their demands?" "They want $100 billion and the release of several cybercriminals who are imprisoned in different countries. Obviously, no government is going to accept that." Francis approached her daughter with concern. "Sophia, you're not thinking of getting involved in this, are you? These criminals are much more dangerous than the ones we faced 5 years ago." Sophia looked at her mother affectionately. "Mom, over these 5 years, the Institute has saved and transformed the lives of thousands of children. Now maybe it's time to use what we've learned to save millions of adults too." Joseph placed a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "Sophia, remember how we always talked about the risks of too much exposure? If you get involved in something this big, you'll attract worldwide attention, and not all of that attention will be positive." Sophia nodded, understanding her father's concern. Over the past few years, she had carefully maintained a low profile, declining interviews and public appearances. Only a small circle of people knew the true extent of her capabilities. At that moment, Isabella entered the room. Now 20, she was studying psychology at NYU and volunteered at the Institute, helping children who had gone through traumas similar to her own. "Sophia, can I talk to you for a moment?" Isabella asked. The two moved to a more private corner of the room. "Sophia, I know you're considering helping with this hospital crisis, and I also know your parents are worried, but I want to tell you something." "Go ahead, Isa." "Yesterday, one of the children I work with here at the Institute told me that her grandmother is in the hospital and the doctors can't access her medical history because the systems are down. The little girl is desperate because she doesn't know if her grandmother will receive the right treatment." Sophia's heart ached. During her years working at the Institute, she had learned that behind every technological problem, there were always real people suffering real consequences. "Isa, do you think I should help?" Isabella held Sophia's hands. "I think you already know the answer. You've always known when someone needs help. The question is, are you prepared for the consequences?" Sophia looked out the Institute's window, watching the children playing in the courtyard during recess. Many of them came from humble families, as hers had once been. Others came from wealthy families, but they all had one thing in common. They had found a place at the Institute where they could develop their talents in a safe and loving environment. "Isa, do you remember that day you were rescued?" "Like it was yesterday. That day, I learned that sometimes we have to risk our own safety to protect the people we love. Today, those people include millions of patients who depend on hospital systems to live." Isabella smiled. "So you've already made your decision." Sophia returned to her family and Gabriel. "I'm going to help," she announced. "But this time, I'm not going to work alone. I want to mobilize the entire network of the Institute's alumni. We have over 1,000 brilliant young people scattered around the world who can contribute their talents." Gabriel was concerned. "Sophia, are you sure? An operation of this size will attract international attention. Your life will never be the same." "Gabriel, for these 5 years, you all have protected me and given me the opportunity to grow in peace. But the time has come to use everything I've learned to make a difference in the world." Francis approached her daughter with teary eyes. "My daughter, if this is what your heart is telling you to do, Mom will be by your side no matter what happens." Joseph hugged Sophia. "And Dad too, my little genius." Over the next 48 hours, Sophia coordinated the largest collaborative cybersecurity operation in history. Alumni from the Sophia Smith Institute worked simultaneously from 12 different countries, creating a digital defense network that not only blocked the attacks on hospital systems, but also tracked down and completely neutralized the responsible criminal organization. The operation was so efficient that it caught the attention of governments, universities, and international organizations. For the first time, Sophia Smith's name became known worldwide. "Sophia," Gabriel said 3 days after the crisis ended, "you literally saved millions of lives. The hospital systems of 43 countries are functioning normally thanks to your work." "It wasn't just my work, Gabriel. It was the work of all of us, of the Institute, of our family, of our values." At that moment, Marina entered the room with a surprised expression. "Sophia, you all need to see this." She turned on the television where a news program was airing a special report. The young American Sophia Smith, just 13 years old, led the international operation that saved the hospital systems of dozens of countries, the anchorwoman said. The daughter of a custodian and a teacher, Sophia is considered by experts to be one of the greatest geniuses in the history of technology. The report showed images of the institute, interviews with alumni, and testimonials from doctors whose hospitals had been saved. "What's most impressive," the reporter continued, "is that Sophia refused any kind of financial reward for her services, asking only that the beneficiary governments contribute to technology education programs in developing countries." Sophia turned off the television and turned to her family. "Now everyone will know who I am. It will be harder to have a normal life." Gabriel knelt in front of Sophia. "Sophia, maybe it's time to stop trying to have a normal life. Maybe it's time to accept that you were born to do extraordinary things. But I don't want to lose my family. I don't want people to see you just as the genius's family. You are so much more than that." Joseph smiled. "Sophia, you are our daughter before you are a genius. Nothing you do in the world will change the love we feel for you or the pride we have in being your parents." In the months that followed, the Smith family's life changed drastically. Sophia received invitations to speak at prestigious universities worldwide, job offers from major corporations, and proposals for collaboration with international research institutes. But the most important decision came from an unexpected source. "Sophia," Gabriel said on a Saturday morning, "I received a call from the UN. They want to create a global technology education program based on our institute's model, and they want you to be the international coordinator of the project." Sophia looked at her. "Parents, that would mean traveling a lot, seeing many different countries." Frances held her daughter's hand. "And it would also mean helping millions of children around the world discover and develop their talents." "My daughter," said Joseph, "when you were little we always dreamed that you could have the best opportunities in the world. Now you have the chance to offer those opportunities to other children." Sophia thought for a few days before making her decision. In the end, it was a conversation with a child from the institute that helped her decide. "Sophia," said Peter, an 8-year-old boy studying programming at the institute, "my teacher said you can help children all over the world learn about computers. Is that true?" "It could be, Peter, but it would mean I'd have to travel a lot and be away from my family sometimes." Peter thought for a moment. "Sophia, remember when you taught me that when we have a talent, we should use it to help others?" Sophia smiled. "I remember. So you already know what to do, right?" That night, Sophia announced her decision to the family gathered in the living room of their home in Brooklyn, the same apartment, where she had grown up. "I'm going to accept the UN's invitation," she said, "but only if you all agree to come with me on this journey. Mum can coordinate the program's international psychological support. Dad can be in charge of security for all the campuses. Gabriel can be the global executive director, and Isabella can coordinate family support." Gabriel was moved. "Sophia, are you sure you want to include us in all of this?" "Gabriel, 5 years ago you taught me that family isn't just about blood, but about the people we choose to have by our side. You are my chosen family, and I want us to take this journey together." 3 months later, the Smith family was in New York, for the official launch of the Sophia Smith Global Program for Inclusive Technology Education. Representatives from 190 countries were present at the ceremony. When Sophia took the podium to give her speech, she no longer seemed like the shy girl who had entered Innovatech 5 years earlier. She had become a confident, articulate young woman deeply committed to her values. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sophia began, "5 years ago, I was just a curious girl who liked to play with computers. I stand here today not because I am special, but because I had a family who believed in me and mentors who taught me that our talents only have value when we use them to serve others." The auditorium fell completely silent. The program we are launching today is not about creating geniuses. It's about giving every child in the world the opportunity to discover their own talents and use those talents to make the world a better place. Sophia looked at her family in the front row. Joseph's eyes were filled with tears of pride. Francis smiled with a heart overflowing with love. Gabriel gave an encouraging nod. Isabella gave a thumbs up that made Sophia smile. "But I want to make one thing very clear," Sophia continued. "No technology, no matter how advanced, will ever replace the love, compassion, and values we learn at home. The future of humanity lies not just in brilliant minds, but in generous hearts." The applause that followed lasted for nearly 5 minutes. After the ceremony, as the family celebrated at a restaurant near the UN building, Sophia received an unexpected call. "Sophia, this is Edward Martin. I'm calling from New York." "Edward, how are you? How's Isabella?" "We're all well, Sophia. Actually, I'm calling to give you some news. Remember the technology company I promised to create to help underprivileged kids?" "I do." "Well, we just closed a contract to provide computers and free internet to every public school in the country. And do you know what the company's name will be?" Sophia smiled. "What?" "Sophia Smith Technologies, in honor of the girl who saved my daughter and taught me the true value of life." When Sophia hung up the phone, she looked around the table and saw her family by blood and her chosen family, chatting excitedly about their plans for the future. "What are you thinking about, my dear?" asked Francis. Sophia smiled. "I'm thinking that 5 years ago, our biggest worry was how to pay for your medical treatment. Today, our biggest worry is how to use our resources to help as many people as possible." Joseph raised his glass of soda. "A toast to my daughter, who taught us that true success is not measured by what we achieve for ourselves, but by what we do for others." "A toast to Sophia," said Gabriel, who turned a corporate crisis into a global educational revolution. "A toast to our family," said Francis, who proved that love and values are the best legacies we can leave to the world. "And a toast," said Sophia, raising her glass, "to all the fathers and mothers who believe in their children's dreams, even when those dreams seem impossible." 2 years later, the Sophia Smith Global Program had established campuses on every continent, offering free technology education to over 100,000 children. Sophia, now 15, continued to live with her family in New York, studying at home in the morning and working at the institute in the afternoon. She had turned down offers from prestigious universities, preferring to continue learning independently while dedicating herself to the project that had become her life's mission. One Friday afternoon, while walking through the corridors of the original institute in New York, Sophia stopped in front of a plaque that Gabriel had installed at the entrance. "Sophia Smith Institute, where talents flourish and hearts are transformed." "Still think it suits you?" asked a voice behind her. Sophia turned and saw Gabriel approaching. "I think it suits all of us, Gabriel. Our family, our values, our dreams." Gabriel looked at the young woman who had saved his company and then revolutionized his life. "Sophia, sometimes I wonder where we would be if Joseph hadn't had the courage to let you try to help that day." Sophia smiled. "Gabriel, my dad always says it wasn't the computers that changed our lives. It was love. His and Mom's love for me, your love for justice, all of our love for others." At that moment, Joseph joined them. "What are you two talking about?" "We're talking about how we got here," Sophia replied. Joseph looked at his daughter with infinite pride. "We got here because you never forgot that before you're a genius, you're a person. and real people use their talents to take care of one another. Sophia hugged her father. Dad, thank you for teaching me that intelligence without kindness is just empty knowledge. And thank you, my daughter, for teaching us that with love, courage, and hard work, any family can change the world. As the three of them walked together through the Institute's corridors, passing rooms where hundreds of children were developing their talents in an environment of love and security, Sophia reflected on the extraordinary journey her family had taken. From a small apartment in Brooklyn to a global program impacting the lives of millions, they had proven that the greatest miracles don't happen by magic, but through unconditional love, dedicated work, and the unwavering belief that every person has the potential to make a difference. And Sophia Smith, the child prodigy who saved a company and transformed the world, remained simply the beloved daughter of Joseph and Francis, who had learned from a young age that the true treasure of life is not in what we know, but in the love we share. That night, at the same kitchen table where Sophia had made her first technological discovery at the age of 5, the Smith family had dinner together, talking about their plans for the weekend, about the children at the Institute, and about the small pleasures of daily life. Because in the end, regardless of how many awards Sophia won or how many lives she saved, the most important thing in the world remained the same simple dinner, at the same humble table, with the same loving family that had taught her that genius without humanity is just an empty skill, but that humanity with love can perform true miracles.